Do you know, the term icon is used too much sometimes when talking about high performance fast cars. And whilst this Ford Focus RS is certainly something of a motoring icon, there's absolutely no arguing that so is that. It's hard to believe that the M3 badge has been with us now for over 35 years, and this, the fourth generation of the M3, is, well, quite possibly the best. This is the last of the naturally aspirated M3s, the first M3 to cost over £50,000. This is the first M3 to have three model numbers, the E90, the E92 and E93. And this is the first and the last, which makes it the only BMW M3 to be fitted with a V8 engine. And boy, what an engine it is too. Now, regular viewers of my channel may have seen my feature a few months ago on my BMW E36 M3 Evolution, where I told you lots of the M3 story. Also, I've been lucky enough in the past to spend a bit of time driving an E46 M3. That was a great car. So when the chance to have this presented itself, well, I jumped at it, and I tell you, it hasn't disappointed, not one bit. So today we're going to take a decent look at this car, the E90 BMW M3 in saloon form, which is very rare. I'll tell you all about that in a moment. And we'll also take this car for a drive, so do stay tuned for all of that. And in the meantime, please do the like, the comment and the subscribe thing. It really helps the channel. The BMW M3 name was born out of the company's motor racing, and it was in 1986 that we saw the arrival of the BMW E30 M3, which was only made in small numbers, produced only in left-hand drive with a four-cylinder engine. Then in 1992 came the E36 generation of the BMW M3, this time produced in coupe, convertible and saloon, or sedan if you're watching from the US. The E36 was fitted with an inline six-cylinder engine and produced in much higher numbers than the E30. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the BMW E36 M3, do watch my previous video where I featured my own BMW E36 M3 Evolution. I'll pop the link in the description below. Then in 2000 came the third generation BMW M3. The E46 again had the inline six-cylinder engine and was produced this time only in coupe and convertible body styles. Arguably the prettiest M3, the E46 has gone on to gain a real following amongst petrolheads. It was in the autumn of 2007 that BMW launched the fourth generation of the M3, initially in E92 coupe form. Two further body styles were to follow, the E93 convertible and a return of the BMW M3 Saloon. Now, before we go into depth about this car, let me bring you right up to date with the M3 lineage. In 2013, the fourth generation M3 ceased production, and it was the following year that we saw the new F80 M3, which was launched with its twin turbocharged inline six-cylinder engine, breaking the sub 4-second 0 to 60 time with the DCT automatic gearbox. After the F80, in 2020 came the G80 M3 with another turbocharged straight six engine setup, and for the first time the M3 has been offered with all-wheel drive. Wow, that is some history. And it is clear to me the incremental steps of evolution as you work through all six generations of the M3, of this performance icon. It was the coupe that proved the most popular, making up 2/3 of the 8,262 fourth generation M3s that came to the UK. It was also the lightest variant of the car, thanks to that carbon fibre roof. Now the E93 convertible, well, it wasn't the M3 in its best form, thanks largely due to those extra 150 kilograms. And arguably, Well, it's the Saloon that's the most desirable. It certainly is the rarest. Only 625 of the Saloon 4th Gen M3s came to the UK. Now, I know the vast majority of the M3 fans out there will favour the looks of the coupe, but not wishing to be biased, I really like, and I think I prefer, the looks of this Saloon. Just around the back there, I think it looks fantastic, particularly in this pre-facelift form with those lovely orange indicators. Outside of the design of the rear of the car, the Saloon actually has all of the same external styling as the E92 coupe, with the exception of the carbon fibre roof. And that contributes to this car's additional 25 kilogram curb weight. Now, other kind of visual highlights of the M3 include the bulging wheel arches are wicked and give the M3 a really planted and aggressive stance. The quad exhaust pipes not only look the part, but play an important part in the incredible noise this car puts out, particularly when you get up high in the revs. The diamond cut, multi-spoke 19-inch M alloy wheels, along with those exhausts, really tell you that the car is an M3 as you approach it from 100 metres. And that power bulge on the bonnet not only gives the car a properly muscular appearance, it also serves a purpose, enabling the BMW engineers to squeeze that fabulous 4-litre V8 engine under it. So let's take a look, and then a listen, and then a drive. Now, I know that the BMW GTR M3, that E46 car, did come with a V8 engine, but that was a special homologation car, and I don't even think BMW made 10 of them, and at €250,000 each. Well, I stand by my earlier comment, and that is that the E90, the 4th generation of the BMW M3, was the only car to come with a V8 engine, or the only mainstream M3 to come out with a V8 engine, and there it is. The S65 B40 engine is a 4-litre naturally aspirated V8, producing 414 brake horsepower and 295 foot-pounds of torque. The M3's engine is essentially a cut-down version of the M5 V10 of the same era. The BMW team worked wonders with the dynamics of this car. Just 2 cylinders of the 8 sit in front of the front axle, meaning weight distribution is well balanced, albeit the V8 engine only weighs 202 kilograms, which is light. In fact, it's 15 kilograms lighter than its predecessor, the E46, which only had 6 cylinders. As is typical for the BMW M cars, this M3's V8 engine features numerous technologies, such as double vanos and individual throttle valves. The highly strung V8 is capable of extremely high revs, with performance peaking at over 8,500 RPM. Now, if you're brave enough to take your car there, at these revs, each of the 8 pistons is covering a distance of 20 meters per second. And that's from where you are to where I am now. Quite incredible. Every piston, every second. Now, the recipe for the BMW E90 was simple. More displacement brought more revs, and more revs ultimately meant more performance and more power. And boy, didn't they get it right. Now, this white BMW M3 is a premium and classy car, and it certainly feels classy in here. The interior oozes class. Okay, so, well, it's a little dated, but it still looks really good, and it's worn incredibly well. Now, one thing that BMW like to do is they like to remind you that you're in an M car, and dotted around this car are a number of M badges, including here, stamped into the lovely and fully electric black leather seats. It's also here on the gear knob, and here on the steering wheel, which is also stitched in the M Sport colours, which is a lovely touch. And of course, being an M car, it's also stamped right there on the dial. And you know you're in something special when the speedometer reads 200 miles per hour. Now, the rev counter also has some really fancy lights, which reads the oil temperature and tells the driver how high they can rev the car, increasing the rev range as the oil warms. Plus, there's some lights on the dash that when you're getting up in the revs, it starts to tell you when to change gear. Very exciting. Now, this is a high quality, high specification car, so there's lots of driver comforts and toys, including BMW's iDrive, providing lots of information about the car's performance. You can operate your Bluetooth telephone setup from here. It's got a premium stereo and sat-nav. The car also has dual-zone digital climate control, cruise control, push-button start, multifunction steering wheel, and lots more. And it's here on the multifunction steering wheel that you get this button, the M button. And this enables the driver to have their own individual function to set up and alter the controls, to alter the steering weight and the gearbox, throttle and damper response. Basically, you get to set this car up how you like it, all ready for a lovely B-road on a weekend. Hit the button and have some fun. Now, the E90 BMW M3 was also the first BMW to come with a dual-clutch transmission, which was an option over the 6-speed manual. Now, the dual-clutch transmission is a 7-speed GetRag MDCT transmission. This was revolutionary, enabling immediate gear changes and dropping the 0 to 60 time of the car to 4.6 seconds. The transmission's complex cooling system also ensured stability suitable for the racetrack. All in all, the MDCT played a major role in the overall performance of the model. Up until this point, no other BMW M3 has been able to transfer drive power from the engine to the wheels faster. So what's it like owning a BMW E90 M3? Well, to be honest, it ain't cheap. And really, would you expect it to be? The car kind of returns sort of 16 to 20 miles per gallon, and on a run, I suppose it can do up to sort of 25. And it's £600 a year to tax. And I suppose that feels expensive when you compare it to all those cars that are zero tax, £5, £20 tax. But to be honest, would you want to drive one of those £0 tax cars over this? And the fact that you're watching this video suggests to me that you wouldn't. So buy an E90 M3 in the knowledge that it's going to cost you a few quid to run it, but you're going to have loads and loads of fun. And on that subject, well, let's take it for a drive. You know, at low speeds, this is, well, it's just a BMW 3 Series. It's comfortable, you could use it every day. But get higher up in the revs, and this accelerates and it sounds, well, like an animal. But it's also really sharp and, well, wonderfully precise. Look at me go around this corner now. But to be honest, it's the engine that's the star of the show. And driving this car is just such a great reminder of how exciting and intoxicating driving a naturally aspirated engine is. They don't make cars like this anymore. In fact, I think this really is the last of its kind. I doubt we'll ever see anything like this again. And that engine noise, well, it's just wonderful. In fact, let's drop a few gears and here's a bit of it for you now. Now, my M3 doesn't have the EDC button that appears here on lots of the other cars. It was an option on the M3 E90, and that's electronic damper control, so you could adjust the dampers. Not that I really understand why you'd want to do that, but it does have this power button. So let's push that. Let's find a straight bit of road. Let's go. It really is wonderful. And, well, if you're brave enough and if you're on a forgiving enough road to take this car up over those 8,000 revs, wow, it's just out of this world performance. And believe me, you will give up way before this car does. We've got a bit of straight road ahead of us. Let's go. Do you know, the gear changes from this DCT gearbox are absolutely lightning quick. I know that in an automatic setting, the car does hunt for 7th speed as quickly as it can. It tries to get you there as quickly as it can. JM on Cars, James said that in a video that he made about it. He's absolutely right. But put this car in the semi-automatic mode and start using these paddles, well, everything gets a lot more exciting. It really is a very fast gear change. And of course you can change it in an E90 M3. You've got this little button here and you can adjust the ferocity of the gear changes of the gearbox, which is brilliant. Now I know the purists out there will favour the manual gearbox over this automatic, but to be honest, this automatic gearbox, well, it makes me feel like a racing driver, that this is a racing car and that I'm changing gears just like a Formula One driver. And there's no real surprise to that, because the factory where the engine for this car was built, well, it actually shares a factory with, at the time, the Formula One team, BMW's Formula One team. So I imagine some of the good practice from the F1 team crept across into this M3. The BMW E90 M3 is not without its problems. The fact that you're watching this suggests to me that you already know and will have heard some of the horror stories about rod bearing failure with that engine. In fact, it's a catastrophic issue and requires a full bottom end rebuild if the rod bearings go. Now, the good thing about this car is they've been done. They were done last year by BMW. In fact, there are the old ones. I'll show you a bit of a close-up now. So it's better to spend £2,000 on preventative maintenance than it is the £8,000 bill, well, north of £8,000 if they go. So if you've got an E90 M3, make sure that you stay on top of that. Anyway, to complete the E90, the 4th generation BMW M3 story, there were a few special editions, and some of the super rare ones include the BMW M3 GTS. This 2010 450 brake horsepower special edition with its 4.4 litre engine really stood out in the fire orange paint and that big spoiler. Plus it came with a roll cage, coilover suspension and some lightweight panels. It was a very track focused M3. Then came the BMW M3 CRT, another powerful M3 arriving in 2011, this time with 4 doors. Just like the GTS, the M3 CRT's 4.4 litre engine generated 450 brake horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 4.4 seconds. I believe only 67 were made, all in that silver frost paint. The other one worth mentioning is the BMW M3 DTM Champion Edition, which is even rarer than the CRT. Launched in 2012 to celebrate the numerous DTM victories and the driver title won by Bruno Spengler, of course DTM being, and I'll get this wrong I'm sure, Deutsche Tourenwagen Masters. And by the end of 2012, BMW Motorsport had achieved a total of 54 DTM race wins, and that's exactly the number of limited edition models that they produced, all in frozen black. And it was in 2013 that they ceased production of the 4th generation BMW M3. Well, in fact, in saloon form, they actually stopped it in 2011, and it was the coupe and the convertible that went on to 2013. Now, if you want one of these today, a 4th generation BMW M3, well, I suppose they represent fairly good value compared to all other M3s. Well, what is good value these days? Everything in the car market seems to have gone crazy, but for a decent coupe, you'll pay upwards of 17,000. And well, for a saloon, you can get into one for just over 20,000, probably more like 22,000 for a good car. And that's precisely how much I'm going to advertise this one for. Because as much as I love it, well, I need to sell it. I've got more coming into the collection pretty soon. I've enjoyed this car. And what you'll find with Cornish car collectors, with me, is I do like to try these BMWs. After all, we've had, as I've said already, an E36 BMW M3 Evolution, here on the channel and in the collection for a short time. I also very briefly featured an E30 BMW. And well, in the past, I've had a number of BMWs, including a 335D Touring, which was an incredible car. And all BMWs are really good cars. You see, they just don't seem to get into my heart in quite the same way as some of the other cars do that feature currently in my collection. I've got a choice to make tonight, two motoring icons, which one to take home? Do I take this, the M3, or the Focus RS that's just off camera? And I think I'll take the RS, so it really is time for this one to go. Thank you so much for watching the video about this E90 BMW M3. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe for lots more content on all of my cars and the other things that kind of pass through the collection. Thanks so much for those of you that have subscribed and continue to watch. And well, I hope to see you all again here very soon, here at Pentel Cars, Cornish Car Collectors. Bye for now. Bye-bye.